In Denver, many passengers were boarding the eastbound express train. Inside one of the train cars, there was a very beautiful young woman. She was dressed in an elegant and stylish way, and she had everything that a well-prepared traveler would need. Among the new passengers, two men entered together. One of them had a confident, handsome face and carried himself in a bold and relaxed manner. The other man looked heavy and grumpy, with a rough and unpolished appearance. What caught everyone's attention was that the two men were handcuffed together. As they walked down the aisle, they looked for a seat. The only available one was a backward-facing seat directly across from the young woman. The two men sat down there. The young woman glanced at them quickly. Her look was distant and indifferent. But then, her face lit up with a charming smile, and her cheeks turned a gentle pink color. She reached out her hand, gloved in light gray. When she spoke, her voice was warm, clear, and deliberate, like someone who was used to being listened to. "Well, Mr. Easton, if you're going to make me speak first, then I suppose I have to. Don't you recognize old friends when you meet them out here in the West?" The younger man looked startled when he heard her voice. He seemed momentarily embarrassed, but he quickly recovered. He reached out and shook her hand with his left hand. "It's Miss Fairchild," he said, smiling. "Please excuse my other hand. It's a little busy right now." He raised his right hand slightly, showing her that it was handcuffed to the left hand of his companion. As she noticed the handcuffs, her happy and excited expression slowly turned to one of shock and confusion. The color drained from her cheeks, and her lips parted slightly as if she didn't know what to say. Easton gave a small, amused laugh and was about to speak, but the other man interrupted him. The grumpy-looking man had been watching the young woman carefully with sharp, observant eyes. "Excuse me for saying something, miss," the man said, "but I see you know the Marshal here. If you could ask him to say a word for me when we get to the prison, it would help me a lot. He's taking me to Leavenworth Prison. I've been sentenced to 7 years for counterfeiting." "Oh," the young woman said, taking a deep breath. Some of the color returned to her face. "So, that's what you're doing out here? You're a marshal now?" "My dear Miss Fairchild," Easton replied calmly, "I had to do something. Money seems to fly away so easily, and you know it takes a lot of money to keep up with our lifestyle back in Washington. I saw this opportunity here in the West and decided to take it. Well, being a marshal isn't as prestigious as being an ambassador, but—" "The ambassador," the girl interrupted warmly, "doesn't visit us anymore. He never had to, really. You should know that. And now you're one of these bold Western heroes. You ride horses, shoot guns, and face danger. That's so different from Washington life. You've been missed by the old crowd." The girl's eyes kept drifting back to the handcuffs. Her gaze widened slightly, as she stared at the shiny metal. "Don't worry about those, miss," the grumpy man said. "All marshals handcuff themselves to their prisoners. It's how they make sure we don't escape. Mr. Easton knows what he's doing." "Will we see you in Washington again soon?" the young woman asked. "Not very soon, I think," Easton said. "My days of fun and leisure are over, I'm afraid." "I love the West," the girl said suddenly, her voice softening. Her eyes sparkled as she looked out the train window. She started speaking more simply and sincerely, without her usual elegant tone. "My mother and I spent the summer in Denver. She went back home a week ago because my father was feeling a little unwell. But I could live out here and be perfectly happy. I think the air here agrees with me. Money isn't everything, you know. But people often misunderstand things and remain stuck in their own silly ideas." "Say, Mr. Marshal," the grumpy man interrupted with a growl, "this doesn't feel fair. I need a drink, and I haven't had a smoke all day." "Haven't you talked long enough? Take me to the smoking car now, won't you? I feel like I'm going to die without a pipe." The two men stood up. Easton gave the young woman a slow smile. "I can't say no to a request for tobacco," he said lightly. "It's the only friend of the unfortunate. Goodbye, Miss Fairchild. Duty calls, you know." He held out his left hand to say goodbye. "It's a shame you're not going east," she said, switching back to her formal, polished manner. "But I suppose you must go on to Leavenworth." "Yes," Easton replied, "I must go on to Leavenworth." The two men walked down the aisle toward the smoking car. Two passengers sitting nearby had overheard most of the conversation. "That Marshal seems like a good man," one of them said. "Some of these Western fellows are all right. He's pretty young to have such an important job, don't you think?" the other replied. "Young?" the first passenger exclaimed. "Oh, come on. Didn't you figure it out? Have you ever seen a marshal handcuff himself to a prisoner using his right hand?"